Hey and welcome. Today we're going to talk about how to use polymuric sand to fill in the cracks in your patio. Polymuric sand comes in a variety of different labels. Today I'm going to be using Gator Dust, but you can also use Enviro Sand, and there's many other types of this stuff. Basically what it is it's a sand-like mortar that is dry when you get it, and it's got glue or adhesive in the mix. And so what I'm going to talk about today is the step-by-step process that is going to walk you through how to seal up the cracks in your patio or stone hardscape. This also works whether you are using pavers or a flagstone just like this. If you have a project that you are working on in your landscape, then I've got a free gift for you. It is a step-by-step guide that I give to my clients to help save them time, stress, and money while working on their landscapes, and I want you to have that for free. You can find it in the link below this video or by checking out the QR code in the corner. That being said, let's get to it. The first thing that we're going to want to do with this, and the step that I've already done with this patio, is you want to clean out the cracks that you're going to be working with. Now, if it's pavers and you've just installed them or you've just installed these stones, you shouldn't have to worry about that too much, but I'm going to give you a trick that I use as a professional to make this really, really easy, and that is use a vacuum, specifically a shop vac. If you use a regular household vacuum, it might wreck up the actual machine itself. However, if you use a shop vac, you can use that to suck out all the grit and stone and stuff that accumulates in the cracks of your patio. And if you use that combined with like a screwdriver or something just to break it up, then you're gonna make this process way easier on yourself. So pop in a good podcast, start that vacuum up, and get rid of all of the stuff that is in the cracks of your patio space. Once all the material is out of the cracks, sweep off the stone around it just to make sure that everything is super, super clean. I actually had rain fall on this one, and so this one is pretty clean itself. But what's really important is that this surface is dry, because if any portion of this surface is wet, the glue that is in the Enviro sand or the polymuric sand is going to activate and adhere to the surface of your stone. Not what we want. We want it to adhere to the surfaces down in the actual cracks itself. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to sweep this off if you haven't already, and then we can start to put the polymuric sand into the gaps. Just be really careful, and I want to fill this gap about halfway up. If you're working with pavers, you can go ahead and fill it all the way up, but for a stone project like this, I just want to go half. And the reason for that is that when we add water, we want to soak the entire batch of this stuff. We don't want any dry left over, because if it's dry, it's not going to adhere and it's not going to cure with the rest of the sand that actually does get wet. If you've ever made a batch of brownies or cookies or something and you've mixed it up in the bowl and you notice that there's a line of flour and other ingredients that didn't get mixed into the batch, that's exactly what happens when you have part of the polymuric sand that doesn't get wet when you are doing this process. So the reason I'm filling this halfway up is that what we're going to do is we're going to fill it halfway. We're going to use a broom to really just smooth this out and get it where it's supposed to go, and to clean off the stones around to make sure that nothing is on the actual stones themselves. And then we're going to wet this all down really, really carefully, trying to soak as much of this as possible, because we can't actually stir the sand once it's in the cracks. But what we can do is let tons of water flow over the top of it, and you don't have to really worry about it washing away. However, you do have to worry about it getting wet all the way through. So what we're trying to do is just soak it really well, and then we're going to let the stone surfaces around it dry. And once these stone surfaces are dry, again, then even if the cracks are wet, we can come back through and do the top layer. From my experience, you have to do both applications in one go, otherwise you'll end up with 2 layers of polymuric sand, and then they can peel off of one another, which is not what you want for the long term. Now that you've got your Gator Dust swept all the way into the cracks, it's time to wet this down and get that final layer completely damp and get the stones washed off. Make sure that you get the foam that comes up out of the sand off of the rocks, because that's the adhesive, and if you leave that, it'll leave a sticky residue on top of the stone. So your goal is to get the powder all the way wet, all the way moist, and in fact you want to kind of soak it a little bit. The more time that water spends on it, the better. And you want to make sure that the stones aren't covered with any of the white foam that's coming off of the polymuric sand. This stuff can last a really, really long time if you do it this way. because it allows the bottom half to adhere to the top half and to all get soaked through all the way and cure as one solid unit. But what often happens with this is people put it in all the way to the top, they don't sweep off their stones, and then they get it wet, and then you've got gritty, sticky glue on top of your stones, which is no good, and it didn't penetrate very deep into the actual mortar itself. And so within a year or two, that top layer starts peeling off. So if you've done this before and you've got a patio that is peeling, don't worry about it. Just use your vacuum to clean it out and start over. I would definitely recommend choosing a day to do this that is dry and where you are going to have plenty of time in order to do both layers, because this does take a little bit of time. So that's how you use polymeric sand in the joints of your patio, whether that's an old patio that you've stripped out the previous material from and regrouted, or whether you've just put in a patio and you're finally grouting it. So thanks for joining me today. Be sure to get your Total Homeowner's Landscape Guide in the link below this video or by scanning the QR code in the corner, and I will see you next time.